Hi, I'm Jane Waldman with an Associated Press Broadway podcast.
Foolish heart, looks like we're here again. Same old game of plastic.
Clay Aiken, who just finished his limited run in the Broadway musical Spamalot, has a new CD out called On My Way Here. I sat down with Aiken recently and spoke with him about his experience working on Spamalot, how he feels about American Idol's Simon Cowell calling his singing to Broadway, as well as what motivated him to record his latest CD.
It's the first time we've been able to do an album of new material since 5 years, but so it's kind of an opportunity to speak a little bit more and to hopefully find songs. We wanted to find songs that meant something, that said something. You know, we haven't done anything original since Measure of a Man, so in looking for these songs, we kind of wanted to have a message in the album, and so we found this song called On My Way Here, which talks a lot about the different experiences that people go through, or the fact that you go through experiences in your life that make you who you are.
I took my first step on the black and white kitchen floor. Sometimes wonder if that house is even there anymore.
In finding On My Way Here, I said to myself, wow, this is a great message. Let's try to find other songs that kind of speak about experiences that people go through.
Tell me some of the other songs on the CD that are your favorites and why.
Since we did an album and we tried to find songs that were lyrically similar, we found that sonically we kind of ran the board. You know, it was they go from kind of jazzy, slow songs to songs with that are kind of more rocky. We have jazzy type songs to more pop centric songs, and so it's hard to pick one that's a favorite. It's hard to pick two that are favorites. There's a song on there called "As Long as We're Here," which initially 3 years ago, when my executive producer James Foster and I started finding songs, we starting working together. Actually, I was listening to demos. She was listening to demos. We were both doing them completely separately. And we came together. We both went through hundreds apiece, and we both came to meet one day. And she had found only one song that she liked, and I had found only one song that I liked, and it turned out to be the exact same song. And so that kind of has a special place between she and I, because it's kind of the song that brought us together. So As Long as We're Here is probably my favorite.
How was your American Idol experience looking back? Was it a good one for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously if I had not done that show, I mean, I wouldn't be here at all, and it was a lot of fun. I totally enjoyed the opportunity. I've often said if I could do that show in the way that it was when I was on it every week, I would do it for the rest of my life.
What I thought was hilarious, since I cover Broadway, was that Simon said to you at one point, "You're too Broadway," as if that was an insult.
Oh yeah, he did, and at the time I think, just because of the psychology of the whole situation and the fact that you knew he was making it an insult, of course it hurt your feelings, and you're like, no, I'm not. But after doing Spamalot now, for having done it for 4 months, and meeting the people who do these things every day, 8 shows a week for some of them years at a time. There are people in Phantom of the Opera who've been in it for 20 years now, and keeping that schedule, it's the hardest thing. I mean, it really is one of the most difficult schedules in the world, I believe, of any job. Maybe the president, but we've had presidents who weren't as talented as as the people who I've worked with are. And I kind of said to myself, after seeing how hard these people work, and they're not just singers, they're not just actors, they're not just dancers, they're singers, they're actors, they're dancers, they play piano, they speak in accents, they jump up and down, they're acrobat. They're the most talented people in the country, in my opinion. And Simon can kiss my foot if he wants to use Broadway as an insult anymore. I mean, he's really an idiot if he thinks that it's an insult.
Would you like to do more Broadway?
It's never been a dream or a goal of mine to do it at all, and I didn't know what to expect when I did it. It's not a plan to do it again. It's not in our future plans. But doing it the first time was not in our plan either. So if a great opportunity comes along, sure, we'll definitely consider it, because I had an amazing time. But it's not necessarily what we're going for.
What are you going for? Is it touring and large concerts, or?
We don't make plans. We don't have any goals. A lot of people say, where do you want to be in 5 years? What do you want to be doing in 10 years? And I kind of say, well, everything that I've done so far has kind of been because we've stayed open. We haven't put blinders on and said, this is what I want to be doing next, this is where I want to be. Because I think when you focus on one thing too hard, you end up losing sight sight of other things. Had we been focusing on this album and making sure this album got done, we wouldn't have done, Spamalot.
I find it interesting, I've heard you say this, that although your records sell incredibly well and you have a very strong and loyal fan base, that you don't get a lot of radio airplay with your music. Is that true?
Well, I think to some extent it is. I mean, there are definitely different formats of radio that are more or less friendly to all different artists. And I don't consider myself a hip-hop person. I'm definitely not going to do hip-hop anytime soon. That seems to be certain top 40 markets or stations formats tend to gear towards that a little bit more. But, I don't think that necessarily has that much to do with anything anymore. I mean, the record industry's changed so much. I think that you can be successful without needing radio play. But at the same time, you can't negate the fact that that's where people find their music, and that's where they are. So, would I love to be on radio? Absolutely. Is it a goal of mine? Again, not necessarily. We did this particular album without having that in mind. We said we're going to make an album that sounds great, that's stuff that we like to do, that's stuff that we want to do, and we're not going to say, we have to do this song because it's a great radio-friendly song. We're going to do only songs that we're comfortable with, and we've done that. And interestingly, I think years of trying to put a square peg into a round hole by saying, okay, let's find this great radio-friendly song and have Clay sing it, and we didn't have success there. This time we've got an album where we didn't go that way. We said, let's just find a square hole for Clay, the square peg, and do that. And in doing that, we found songs that I think are great, and who knows what'll happen with them.
Probably end up on the radio.
They just might.
Happened with Michael Bublé, and it took a long time for him to catch on.
Right, and now look how huge he is, and in large part because of radio. AC radio is. I think it's really interesting that there's this real push a lot of times to get people on top 40 radio, and you have to be on that particular format, and that's what sells albums, and it surely does without question. And people say, you can't be on AC radio because it doesn't sell albums, and you can't be on hot AC because it doesn't sell albums. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, those stations have a lot of, they're very powerful. They have a lot of input, and the audiences that listen to AC radio and hot AC radio and whatever they call the different formats are extremely powerful audience, a really great demographic. They're the people who oftentimes are most loyal, and look at Michael and look at the people who have come off of those stations and been so successful.
Well, you're incredibly successful. If we judge from the fans that greeted you at the stage door at Spamalot, that must have been crazy. What was that like for you?
Well, we've been doing this for 5 years now, so we're used to some of the folks that come our way when it comes to energetic audiences. It's always flattering when people show up to support you.
Who is the Clay Aiken fan?
I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can pigeonhole any one particular demographic. It's largely female, and that's flattering too, considering none of them would talk to me when I was in high school. But it's hard to say. We've got teenage girls, we've got middle-aged women, we've got older women. It's everywhere.
You've said in interviews that American Idol has changed. That when you were on, it was someone unknown who was rocketed to stardom. You feel like now the people have more experience?
I think there was an innocence to it a number of years ago. Obviously, I don't have any room to talk. I'm not producing a show, and I definitely am not producing the most successful show in the world, which it still is. It's still doing quite well. But, I think I'm a little nostalgic for the days when it was about the kid next door becoming a star versus the kid who already had a record deal and lost, becoming a star. It's just a matter of taste.
And that was you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think for a number of years, the first 3 years especially, that was everybody. Everybody was somebody who had no chance I speak from my good friends Ruben and Kim Locke, who all three of us, we were kind of the three who probably would not have gotten a record contract on our own, and we'll all three readily admit that. And then you look at Kim Locke still putting out albums and still performing live and doing well, and we've had success on our own. Ruben's about to go out on the road with a tour with a bunch of people, and none of the three of us would have had that happen had it not been for Idol. And I think that was part of the charm of the show at the time, that it was innocent a little bit more.
How has your life changed going from an unknown to superstardom?
Well, it's been 5 years, so it's hard to. That was a question that I got a lot in the first year and a half after the show. 5 years in, it's a little bit different to ask because it's kind of hard to remember it. It's kind of hard to remember what life was like before Idol at this point, and I think that's kind of surprising to me that we've stuck around this long.
How is your life different 5 years later? later?
I'm more comfortable with it. I'm more comfortable with it's like anybody who has a job. Your first day on a job, you have no idea what's going on. You can't run the cash register. You don't, And 5 years in, if you stick with any job for 5 years, you're pretty much professional. You know what you're doing, and you're more comfortable with it. I think that we'd be like that with any profession, not just the music industry.
Is success everything you thought it would be or you dreamed of?
Well, I don't think I never dreamed of success in this way. I think there are people who are far more successful than me or far more successful than Oprah. It's just they don't do it. Success is not about being famous or about being rich. It's about being happy. And I'm sure, and I say Oprah's name because she's considered probably one of the most successful people in the industry, but she would admit that herself. I'm sure that, you're only as successful as you are happy.
I'm Jane Waldman with an Associated Press Broadway podcast.